If you want to work on bringing this country, it's my time, not yours.
My God.
If you want to talk about
dividing this country,
it is
I
my
follow
time.
you on your social media posts that
It is
tear
my
this country
time
apart.
to address
There should be a
your
unifying.
falsehoods.
Oh,
You are an
you can
embarrassment
try all
to the
you
division
want
in this country.
to not
Senator,
take
it is
my
responsibility
time.
for what
You
you
had
have
your
said.
time.
Sir, you're
Your
making
time
a
is
mockery of
over.
this.
Chairman, I have to say, it used to be that to see theater, you had to go to the Kennedy Center. Now, apparently, you need only go to the Senate Judiciary Committee and see our Senate Democrats berating the director of the FBI, which, okay, it's not, partisan politics is not new in the United States Congress. Do you believe Antifa is a terrorist organization?
I believe Antifa is associated with a lot of violence in this country. As to its designation, I'll leave that to the appropriate authorities.
So I would encourage the administration to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization, to go systematically after Antifa. They've committed acts of violence all over the country.
And joining me now is Senator Ted Cruz. And Senator, I think you've probably been part of some theatrical moments of your own in some of those hearings. Obviously, it got quite contentious at points today. But what you were arguing there, what you were talking there about with the director, Kash Patel, was actually something President Trump himself talked about 5 years ago when he said the U.S. was going to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization. You and Senator Cassidy had actually introduced a resolution calling for that 1 year before. Do you know why it didn't happen then, and do you expect it to happen now?
You know, I do think it's going to happen now, and I'm urging the Department of Justice and the FBI and the entire administration to do so. And more broadly, what I'm urging them to do, and at the hearing today, what I urge Director Patel to do, is follow the money. That much of this violence that we've seen is not organic, that there is real money that is funding it. So the Black Lives Matter and Antifa riots all over the country, there was real money behind that. The anti-Israel, anti-Semitic riots on college campuses, there was real money behind that. The open border riots we saw in LA and across the country, there's real money behind that. I'm not the only person who noticed that at the anti-Semitic protests on college campuses, many of the tents all matched. And so what I'm urging the Department of Justice to do is look at who's funding it. And indeed, I've introduced legislation to aid in that. It's called the Stop Funders Act. And what that legislation would do is very simple. It adds rioting to the list of predicate offenses under RICO. And that would enable the Department of Justice to use RICO, a very powerful tool for going after organized crime, not just to go after the people committing specific acts of violence, but to go after those who are writing checks to foment that violence. And I think that would have a massive effect pulling back and limiting this violence.
Yeah, but can I ask you on just the Antifa part of this, what existing federal law would give the president or the State Department the authority to be able to designate a domestic group as a terrorist organization? Is there one?
Well, what I've called for, they're clearly carrying out acts of terrorism. They're carrying them out domestically. They're organizing. They're engaged in direct acts of violence. And indeed, one of the things that I asked Director Patel is what evidence is there that there are other people who had foreknowledge of this assassination of Charlie Kirk. We know that he was engaged in Reddit conversations with others, and we know that the shell casings that he used in the rifle had Antifa slogans on them and had transgender slogans on them. And it appears from what's been reporting that there were extensive discussions in various Reddit and Discord organizations. To the extent others had foreknowledge and aided and assisted, that may well be a manifestation of Antifa violence or transgender violence. We've seen a disproportionate incident of transgender violence as well. And so examining what groups potentially are behind these acts of violence, I think it is overwhelmingly clear things like the anti-Semitic protest had money behind it. With respect to Charlie Kirk's murder, that is not determined yet, but I think it should be investigated very thoroughly.
Yeah, as Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, just said, right now they don't have any evidence of an organization. Obviously, they're still looking into this. But on the bullet casings, I don't remember there being a transgender one on there. I remember him saying there was one that said, if you can read this, you're gay. It was referencing internet memes. But on what you just said there about investigating
there is. Hold on a second, Caitlin. There is a transgender one.
If there is funding.
Hold on, Caitlin. Caitlin, there is a
Go
transgender.
ahead.
There's a reference to, do you see my bulge, which is, I'm told, is an online meme for transgenderism. And Director Patel testified that the murderer here was living with his romantic partner, who was a transgender man transitioning to being a woman. And so you have both the shell casing that directly references transgenderism. And in fact, Charlie Kirk was murdered moments after he was asked a question about transgender mass shootings, and that's when the shooter filed. And so, do we have conclusive proof at this case?
Well, hold on,
no,
Senator.
but I will
Hold on
say
a second,
this. Some of the most disturbing polling numbers that I see are the number of Democrats who believe that
Senator,
this left-wing activist was somehow a Republican. I mean, that really shows the media not doing the job they should be doing.
Okay, Senator, but one moment, because you said a lot there, and we don't have a motive yet. We don't know yet. We're waiting. Obviously, we've heard what the governor's had to say, what the FBI director said today.
Come on, we don't have a motive yet.
We know
we don't have a motive yet.
What's happening with
really? That's CNN's position.
I mean, from law enforcement,
he just happened
Senator.
to fire the gun in celebration. You can't tell the motive,
Senator.
Here.
That's not what I said, and I said law enforcement hasn't laid out a direct motive. They've laid out a lot of evidence here of these messages and what
actually,
the
they
shooter
have.
said
They've
to
said that
family
he was a
members
left-wing
and to
activist who
roommates.
hated Charlie Kirk. Pardon?
Senator, with all due respect, you know exactly what I'm saying. I'm not arguing with you politically. I'm saying that law enforcement has not put a specific motive. You know that there's a difference of what they're putting in a legal argument than what you're talking about. And you're not even we're not even arguing about the facts here.
What you just said is false,
Senator,
Caitlin.
No.
Caitlin, facts. Hold on a second. Let me answer your statement, because what you said is factually
Senator, with
false.
all due respect,
law enforcement.
With all due respect, you're putting a lot of statements
okay, go ahead,
that I did not say. And I want to get back to, we just laid out the facts.
You
in the
just
opening
said
of
law
the show,
enforcement has not laid out a motive. That is objectively false.
And we just spoke to the Deputy Attorney General.
That is objectively false.
They
what
have not
you
set a concrete motive of exactly what it was.
And
They've laid out
CNN
every
should not be
evidence that we
engaged in
know so far.
misinformation. Caitlin, answer my question.
It's not
Have you seen the
misinformation,
polling
Senator.
that shows the vast majority of
you were
Democrats
taking what I
believe
said
this murderer is a Republican and a Trump supporter? Have you seen that polling?
Let me get back to my questions, though, Senator, because the question here
You're not going to answer that
was
question?
actually
Are you going to answer
what
that
you were
question?
saying
You
about
have seen that
investigations
polling.
that you'd like to see.
So you're not going to
Senator,
answer the
I'm
question.
the one asking the questions here, and the question.
No, we're having a conversation. I understand that you want to say things that are factually false, and then you don't actually want the facts. You don't actually want the facts laid out. Okay, give your speech.
That's not true, Senator. I'm asking you a question.
Go ahead. I don't know what your question is, because we have a delay because you're in England, so I can't hear what you're saying.
You said that you believe that left-wing groups should be investigated. You want to know where the financing is coming from for protests. Do you believe that they should also be looking into right-wing groups as well, or do you believe it should only be limited to that?
Look, I believe anyone engaged in acts of violence should be prosecuted and go to jail. But I will say there has been an enormous amount, and CNN has been guilty of this, of both sidesism, of saying, gosh, both sides are violent. And understand, yes, there is some violence on both sides, but it is the left that overwhelmingly celebrates this. It is leftists that have been celebrating. You look at Blue Sky, and it is a cesspool of leftists celebrating the murder of Charlie Kirk. You look at recent polling that shows over 50% of Democrats saying violence against Elon Musk is justified, violence against Donald Trump is justified. You look at Democrats who do things like what Kamala Harris did, of giving money and urging people to give money to bail out violent rioters and Antifa riots. It is only one side that justifies this violence. My view is, if you commit acts of violence, you should be prosecuted. And